Hello, my fellow self-care homies, and welcome back to my channel, Homebrew Healing. I'm Asher. Thank you for joining me today. Today is the 4th installment of the CBT series that I'm running. And trigger warning, today we are talking about, well, we're getting vulnerable. I'm getting real vulnerable. Let's just put it that way. I'm talking about mental health, undiagnosed conditions, and toxic positivity. Today's card is Be Your Own Friend. When you make a mistake today, no matter how big or small, I challenge and empower you to respond to yourself and that mistake as if you were speaking to a loved one, and to notice the differences in how that response varies from how you typically self-talk. I think a lot of us have a tendency to be really hard on ourselves. So I really needed this card today, folks, and let me tell you why. So I went 32 years with undiagnosed ADHD. And someone I met last night said to me really kind of reminded me of the importance for some of us of having the validation of a diagnosis. He basically, in response to me sort of pointing out the correlation between things like addiction and undiagnosed ADHD, made a very toxic, positive comment about how if you say can or can't, you've already kind of put yourself in a box, which, I mean, I think a little bit of balance is needed here, because the power of our thoughts is so real. I mean, that's a huge part of why I'm running this channel. Positive thinking, gratitude exercises, these filling your mind with thoughts that serve you well, these are essential for our well-being. However, when we're discussing something like a chemical imbalance in someone's brain, reducing that to you weren't thinking positively enough, it actually reminded me of a family member, I won't disclose who, I mean, has the most beautiful of intentions, loves me so much, is also very quick to make comments regarding any symptoms that I have struggled with, that imply or insinuate a lack of will on my part. And the reason that I'm talking about toxic positivity and undiagnosed ADHD, there is a relationship to today's card, I promise. The reason I mention these things, though, is because those kinds of comments are something that I really internalized over the years. And they created an incredible cycle of guilt and shame. And receiving a diagnosis is not an excuse for shitty behavior, right? I'm not gonna say, oh, yeah, I'm, was really abusive or fucked that up, I'm ADHD. No, of course not. But getting that diagnosis it was life-changing, because suddenly the struggles that I had, my inability to quit substance uses, my inability to quit my substance use, the struggles that I had with emotional regulation, how easily overwhelmed I got, how irritable I was when I was in sensory overload. I just spent years thinking I was an irritable, controlling, horrible person. getting that diagnosis, suddenly these struggles were not a personality or character flaw. It wasn't because I was too weak or I wasn't trying hard enough. It was because I had very real barriers. I'm still working through a lot of that internalized shame, which is another reason why I wanted to start this channel. It's for you guys, but it's also for me. And I intend to get vulnerable, and I hope you do too. Because what are we doing if we're not being authentic? Getting this diagnosis for me has paved the way not only to self-love and understanding. I suddenly understand that, you know, I'm not necessarily a miserable, irritable. You know, it's like an epiphany. I suddenly realize I'm not actually a miserable and irritable person. I struggle with sensory overload, which means that I can do something about it. I can exercise a little more control over the lighting and the sounds, and I can recognize that that is what is putting me into overload or overwhelm. This diagnosis has opened doors for me as far as treatment is concerned. I'm finally on a medication that has honestly changed my life. Thanks to this medication, I'm finally kicking addictions that I've had since I was a child, that I never thought I would be able to. No matter how many times I tried, I thought that they were going to put me in the grave. I know it's not easy for some of us to exercise self-love. Trust me, I get it. I spent years being someone who struggled so much, and those struggles manifested themselves in ways that made me feel and believe I was not a good person, and I was not worthy of love, for myself or anyone else. In my case, this diagnosis really has shifted my perspective, both in the treatment it's offered me, in the explanation and rationale it's given me, the roadmap it's given me to better understand myself. So today, I challenge and empower all of you to meet yourself with compassion and forgiveness in the same way that you would your most dearly beloved. I'm still learning to be my own friend. And I hope you can too. Well, thank you for joining me today, folks, and thank you for getting vulnerable. I really would love to hear from any of you in the comments, either about your experience and exercises regarding self-compassion and self-forgiveness, or your experiences with undiagnosed or diagnosed mental health or toxic positivity, anything that I touched on in this video. But thank you for joining me, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Hopefully not crying.